In this week's pep talk, I thought it would be fun to do a little reflection. So I'm writing this after our sixth, maybe seventh launch. I don't know, sixth or seventh. I think it's sixth launch of Antisocial School, which honestly just blows my mind that we've done it that many times it's been 2 years. One of the journal prompts that I write down every week in my journal, along with launching, when I'm launching, is it gets to be easy. And that is because sometimes, and I'm sure you feel the same way, like we just overcomplicate things. Like when we think about launching, or we think about creating a program, or we think about creating a new resource, whatever it might be for your business, like we overthink it and we think it needs to be complicated. And so after leaving my corporate job, I really wanted life to just be easier. And I didn't want to sign up for creating a business where we had these really long launches and 17 team members and millions of dollars in ads. Like that just made my head spin a little bit. And I've been a part of these, right? Like I've been affiliates for these. I've been part of coaching circles and masterminds where that's the norm. And it's honestly fascinating. Like I love the data. I love all of that because a lot of that is very similar to what I did in my corporate job. But for me, with a really small team, it creates a lot of stress. And so I just keep thinking over and over and over again, like, what if it was just easy? And what if there was a different way that felt really good? And I know that I'm sharing this like as it's happening in real time, but I'd like to think that we're like starting to figure it out. And I'm sharing this because the whole purpose of this episode was I thought like, hey, if I were going to start from scratch in 2024, there are things that I would absolutely do. And there are a few things that I would like have a hard pass on, like, no, thank you. So if I were to start over again, these are 3 things that I would really, really pay attention to, and things that even now, even though we have a business already, that we're really dialing into. So first up, and I get this question a lot, that working while building your side hustle business, whatever you want to call it, insert your dream, working while doing that is not failing, right? It's totally not failing because I'm such a huge believer that you should not put all of your eggs in one basket. I should not put my whole life satisfaction into this business. That does not make sense. So at the beginning, and even now, I like to put myself in rooms with women that are much further ahead of me. And I catch myself saying this to this day of, well, I was working full time, so I can't do that. Or my schedule doesn't support that. Or my launch isn't that big. Or my list isn't as large to you. I literally just said that in a Voxer message to this group that I'm a part of. And I was like, no, Holly, it's okay. Like, I don't have to say, well, I'm not doing it this way because I think that that's the way that everyone has to do it, right? So I guess what I'm sharing is just because you're doing things a little bit differently doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. And so working while building your business is actually smart because if you look at all the millionaires and billionaires of the world, they have like 7 or 8 income streams. So you working on whatever you're doing, plus your business, plus whatever else, is smart entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship is also hard. And you making decisions that help you not put all of your eggs in one basket, honestly, is what makes sense. And so when we started our business, and if I were to start over again, I would do the same thing. I kept my job and I kept doing things that were bringing in income while I was building this sort of ship that then was going to replace that income so that I didn't have to worry every week of like, oh my gosh, I have to, make XYZ figures, or how are we going to go to the grocery store this week, right? So to me, that's much more satisfying and way less stressful. And even when I left my corporate job, Scott and I had a plan, my husband, of, hey, you're going to do this for 1 year. We're fine for a year. But after that, we got to come up with a different route if it's not working. So I think in today's economy, like looking at your business is one thing, but looking at where are all your different income streams coming from is another. And I don't think it's something that people talk about a lot. So you can have a business, you can have a job, you could have, we have like stock income and dividends and 401k and retirement. Like there are lots of other ways, savings, that we have different income streams. So if I were to start over again, I would totally do this. And that is, it's okay to be working full time while you're part-time or whatever, while you're building your dream schedule. The second thing I would share, and I talk about this all the time, I'm like a broken record, is learn email strategy. And I can't remember if I shared this on the podcast before, but the very first course that I ever purchased, I think it was like $300, which felt like a lot when you're not bringing in any money, was a course on ConvertKit. And to say that it changed my life is an understatement, because it taught me all about email segmentation. Like, it was like an advanced course. And I was like, I'm just going to learn it. Like, I'm just going to become an expert in this. And so I've talked a lot about why you need an email strategy, and we even have a full podcast playlist on it, which PS is really, really fun. If you just DM me playlist, I'll send it to you. It's on Spotify. It's all about email marketing, and it's all of our podcast episodes. But the whole point is it's really, really helpful to have an email strategy. And I talk a lot about like understanding how to use email, but it's also important, like, how do you segment your audience? How do you set up a funnel? How do you create a nurture system that works while you don't? How do you set up sales funnels? I have email funnels that are running now that I created 4 years ago. So to say that you can like tweak it and update it over time is amazing, right? You have to understand email, and you have to create a system that's going to be robust enough to support you as you grow. So I just thought I would share a little more behind the scenes on this. And we have sent, I actually went and looked this up before I did this podcast episode. We have sent 376,000 emails in the last 90 days, which, are you ready, is 1.2 million emails in 4 years. Oh my gosh. I am in it to win it with email. I am telling you, do not skip this. Learn it, create it. And if you don't have a lot of time, spend time on email. And the best thing that we did with email was actually created our CEO Week challenge. So that's at hollymaryhaynes.com/CEO Week. You can see it all in play. But it took me almost 2 years to create it, but it's all through email. So it's an epic 5-day challenge that helps you create your schedule. I teach you how to send out emails, what to say, how to do it, what days to do it, how to actually engage with your audience. And now it sort of runs on autopilot. So it then, you take CEO Week and then it runs into our club membership. And if you don't want to be a part of the club, then we have other ways that we can help you. And so this works through email, right? We've got some other sort of help behind the scenes with like where we support the course and all of that. But mainly through email, it works when I don't. And so this is what I would call passive income. But to be clear, I don't think anything is passive. Even though the email sequence does the work for you, you still need to get people in it because they don't magically find you. I mean, some people might, but for the most part, you've got to get people in it yourself. Which leads me to number 3. If I were to start over again, the word client attraction is something that I would say every single day. I did not even use this word until about 2 years ago, but my lesson here is I didn't lean into client attraction until late 2022, early 2023. And if I would have done this earlier, oh my goodness. So this simply means, and we've talked about it a lot lately, is inviting people into your world. So here's an example. So I've been pretty open about how we've been launching and what it looks like. And for our last launch, the last 2 months, so that's 8 weeks, I spent 100% of my time almost on client attraction. I spoke in multiple groups, masterminds, communities, in-person events. I was on 10 podcasts and had 12 networking coffee chats, right? That doesn't include the organic networking that happens behind the scenes in our mastermind and other masterminds that I'm in, and the podcast interviews that I do every single week. But I want to share that because I want you to see that that's the focus. Now, does this happen every week like this? No. Did it happen very intentionally over this 8-week period because I knew that we were launching Antisocial School? Yes. And so I just want you to think about, what if you made that your focus? What if your business strategy was literally this easy? And that is, number 1, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Remember that building takes time. And if I want to take this a step further, the Taylor Swift movie at the time of recording this had just come out. And my girls and I were watching it. And then, of course, I'm getting all these like Taylor Swift updates in my social feed. And I saw a case study on her success. And it was a reminder that everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's been so successful this year. But no, she's actually been doing this for 20 years, 20 years. So I'm not advocating that setting up an email sequence or working multiple jobs is going to take that long. But what if you just told yourself, hey, I'm going to do this for a few years and then plan accordingly? If I were to start over again, number 2 is use email as your superpower. So learn to love funnels and newsletters and segmenting. It is so much data. It's going to make your life so much easier Most people will not take the time to do this. And honestly, the data alone from sending out emails can change your life. You're going to know what topics people like, who's opening, who's clicking, what's happening when they go to your website. Like there's so much data that can give you so much information about what to do next. It's like a little map. So my non-negotiable every single week is one email, one podcast, and then I try to connect or network with 3 people. So can I introduce somebody? Can I be on somebody's podcast? The goal is like 3 a week. So we haven't missed a date yet. So again, that's almost 2 million emails later, but these are the non-negotiables that if I were to start over again, I would start so much sooner. But the last one is get out and talk about your business, because you could have the most beautiful website in the world. I'm advocating that you can have one, but I don't think that you need one. But if no one knows what you do, how are they going to find your website, right? So what's one thing that you can do each week to get your name out there, to help someone, to introduce yourself? And so coming out of this launch, I was reminded that simple strategy will win every single time because it's not complicated and you're going to stick to it. We had a plan. Email was a superpower, but networking really took us across the finish line. And when the launch is over, nothing changes. All of that continues. And so these are the consistent activities that I do and I teach over and over and over again. And even though the trends change, if I were to start over again, I would create these as the backbone. So I'm curious, what would you do different if you started over again? Do you have these strategies in place? And what if instead of trying to learn something new, you really dug into the strategies that worked? So you could see this whole philosophy come to life in our 5-day CEO Week challenge. You could go to hollymariehaines.com/CEO Week. But if I were to start over again, these are the things that I would do first. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what you thought of this episode if you'd like more of behind the scenes, and I will chat with you next week.